everybody. This is me, Anatole, and we have Mike behind the camera on a Zoom call. And we are continuing our conversations. So, Mike, tell me, how are you and what we should talk about today?
I'm doing all right. So today's topic comes under the guise of going and getting what you want, in a way. It's going to be a discussion of agreed upon realities. And to that, we could go in many different directions, of course. But the image that comes to mind in popular fiction, if you will, is a scene from The Matrix in 1999, where Neo goes to see the Oracle, and before he actually goes in to see her, he sits with this child who is playing with a spoon. Only he's not playing with a spoon; he's bending the spoon with his mind, and he tells Neo that the trick is to realize that it's not the spoon that's bending, it's you that's bending.
Mm-hmm.
So we go through life accepting reality that other people create, and involving ourselves in realities that other people create. And then we all, of course, also agree on certain things regardless of that, which is a chair is a chair, a table is a table, etc. But at some point, to make our own reality, to make the things that we want to happen actually happen, we have to decide, one, what we want, and two, we have to decide how to make that reality possible. And there, what I'm trying to get at is also something that has been practiced in martial arts for ages, whether it's breaking a board or a bunch of bricks or whatever else. Some people might say fake it till you make it, but in martial arts, it's really believing that your fist is going to end up on the other end of the thing. And it doesn't matter what's between where you started and where you finished. You just believe that the thing you're going to break doesn't matter what it is. So there's a point to which you have to escape the agreed upon reality in order to get what you want.
Mm. Well, this is we can spend lifetime on this.
Sure.
So I'm going to say a few things. Number one, and probably the most important thing in my world, is that since I have a spiritual religious background from which I tend to talk, and the one which you very nicely want to dislodge me from, pretty much all spiritual traditions and all religious traditions, they talk about which desires are good and which desires are bad. And they also, many times, they want you to take a certain path. And what I want to say here, right out of on the onset of our conversation, is that that path can never be your path. And the true spiritual path starts with you having a very good look at what you want, and pursuing what you want. And the interesting thing about pursuing what you want is that when you get closer to what you want, your perspective starts to change. So, for example, something that I've said a million of times is like the perspective of a 15-year-old boy is different from a 20-year-old boy, big or man, because he has a different point of experience. And same thing, someone who is 30, 35, or 40 has a different perspective than a 20-year-old. Now, this is obvious, unless you're an idiot. But what is not obvious is that somewhere in our 20s in particular, what we perceive as reality starts to become quite solid. And if we want to achieve great things, we need to snap out from that received perception of reality and find something new. And that is what hero journey, one way or another, is. We need to climb a mountain that no one else climbed before us. And that may sound like a total cliche, but where it's not cliche is that every person, because we're individual, we have our own individual issues, we have to climb a different mountain. And what is a mountain for you may be a different mountain for me, which also sounds like a cliche. So that's numero uno, the first thing. The next story we need to talk about is that we as a human beings, we have certain biology. We also have very long childhood, whereas the society and our parents train us to become hopefully decent human beings, so that we hopefully can live in a society without trying to kill others, think stupid thoughts, and do stupid actions, and become successful in a kind of physical, biological sense. That's what our parents in particular want us to be. They want us to be healthy. They want us to be, happy, which is impossible. You can be happier, but not always happy. And we get kind of that stuck in that received wisdom. And some people, I mean, it's not difficult to observe it. Some people become insanely rich. Some people become amazingly spiritual. Some people become really sophisticated with relationships and whatnot. For every, wall painter, there is, for every million wall painters, there is a Picasso or a Rembrandt who produced amazing masterpieces. And I'm not saying that everyone can become that good, but certainly people can snap out from being a street sweeper or some ordinary person. That is pretty much possible for anyone. So when we talk about this, the next stage that we need to talk about is how our thinking gets formed. Basically, our parents in particular, but society in general, from the very, very early age, form our perceptions. In other words, they dictate to us what is the right perception and what is the wrong perception. And together with that kind of perceiving, we form several things. One of them, there is a term that will be difficult to explain. We have an inventory within our minds. In other words, we have a tradition, a system where we name things. So for example, I have a chair right here. There is a TV in front of me, which you can't see, but I sure can. The sun just came out, and you can probably see the light has improved on this video. I'm sitting on a sofa. All of these things seem so ordinary, and all of you out there immediately know that the chair is a chair, and the sofa is a sofa, and TV is a TV, etc. But the problem with these things that if you see instead of TV a dinosaur, you'll get shocked, and you'll say, no, it's not possible to have a dinosaur in this room. because we're living in 21st century and dinosaurs died millions of years ago. They went extinct. This is a silly example, but what is not silly about it is that our mind prevents us from experiencing miracles. In fact, miracle is a term for something happening that is outside of our traditional normal inventory. So, for example, if you walk on the street and you will find $100 bill, you will get shocked. If you find a quarter or a 10-cent coin or something small, you're not going to get shocked. I mean, just today, I saw a dime, which is 10 cents for those who are not in the United States, on the street, and I didn't even pick it up. But in India, that would be like 7 or 8 rupees, which is you can buy a cup of tea for that in the right place. But I didn't even pick it up because we have different perceptions here from, say, India. Why am I talking about this? Well, because we're all conditioned by our society to perceive certain things, and we ignore other things. So one example that we are heavily ignoring is intuitive knowledge. So in our society, particularly in the United States, there is a very strong skew towards intellectual knowledge, particularly something that you can prove, particularly something that you can discover in double-blind study, whatever the quality of that study is. So let's snap out from this conversation. So say, for example, you want to become very, very rich. For a person who is really, really talented and into computers, you can probably make plus or minus $100,000 a year working your rear end off and having pretty much no life unless you're very, very special and you can work for 8 hours and then spend another 4 hours, during during your day going to the gym and flying to different countries, etc., etc. So basically, what's available for a regular person is, well, it's limited. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's limited. And if you want to travel the world, if you want to experience life to the fullest, you need to recognize what you want really to achieve and what you don't want. And the society will dictate to you what you need to do. How do you need to pay your bills? And of course, we're not talking about that you shouldn't pay your bills. We're not talking about you smoking dope all day to go, very happy. We're talking about changing your point of attraction to reality. So why, for example, a stupid person, relatively speaking, can be a CEO of a company, while someone who is smarter than that person is toiling at, at a job that consumes his or her life. This is outside that many CEOs have their life pretty consumed by their jobs. Well, to achieve great results, you need to become extraordinary. And that is in many, many ways what we're trying to do here at Modern Seers. And I'm going to stop here for a little bit. I'll let you respond.
Well, I'm not sure that I have much of a response there, but, becoming exceptional is very vague.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And subjective.
It is vague and subjective, yep. So is happiness, so is achievement. And it may sound really judgmental what I'm saying, but when you're ready to take a good look at what you want, when you're frustrated enough, when you have had many times your perspective change, you start asking yourself big questions about what is really important in your life. And in your younger years, you want to find a role model that seems similar to what you would like to achieve. But ultimately, you'll have to do it on your own. And how do you do that? Well, there is nothing you can do about taking a good look about what's possible. When you look at what's possible, the inventory, your mind, your conditioned mind will say, well, what I see is possible is what I see is possible. And the big thing about what you just said is skepticism. That's part of the inventory. Your mind will say, well, I've lived on this planet for 30, 40, 50, 100 years, and I've never seen anybody achieve anything beyond that. First of all, that's not true. But another thing which is definitely true, it is much safer to do a regular worldly path, get a job, and wait until you retire, and hopefully you will have a few years when you can so-called enjoy your life. Probably you won't, because at that time, first of all, you'll become quite rigid, and your idea of enjoyment will be pretty limited. So this skepticism is probably really what we need to talk about in this talk. Like, how can you expand your mind beyond your own limitation? How can you imagine that things are amazing if you imagine them amazing and they'll turn amazing and you'll become amazing without setting off a lot of people think that you're not amazing, but just flat crazy.
Well, let me just stop you there. First of all, you said amazing too many times, but beyond that,
that was on purpose.
I also want to point out that we're not trying to encourage people into manic fever dreams here. This is not like let's find out how to turn you into a manic depressive. This is more what is the root of skepticism? What is the root of
inventory? That's the root of skepticism. Yes, say it.
And so, sorry, it's the root of what has caused you to believe that you do not have the ability to do X. Some people say, oh, well, I can't run a mile. Well, you can if you practice. You can if you develop the belief in yourself that you can run that far. I'm sure there are people that have physical disabilities and maybe they actually can. But there are a lot of other people that just sit instead of starting to work towards the goal. So sometimes it's not just skepticism. Sometimes you have built into yourself a level of disbelief that stops you from trying things.
Yeah, all of this is true. And, and I'm certainly not encouraging people to smoke a lot of dope and become airy-fairy, move to some island and prance around half naked or naked. I'm not against it. I mean, knock yourself out. I mean, you can swim with it, with sharks in the ocean also. The thing is, what you're talking about is about life coaching. You can run a mile and you can run a marathon. You can, become a great engineer or a professor, get yourself a PhD, or become a CEO and become a very, very rich person. The question is, why would you want to do that? What's the point of it? And this is the question that you need to ask. And then, of course, the question about your abilities is a serious question. I mean, if your IQ is low and you want to become a great engineer, you'll have a great fun time with that. And we go back to this Dunning-Kruger effect, where people think that they're really, really great and amazing, when actually they're just deluding themselves and they're not that amazing.
Okay, so okay, so you want to be out of the life coaching realm. You want to be in the spirituality realm.
No, I'm moving in that direction. You cannot be, I mean, I definitely want to be out of that life coaching realm, but you're not. You're in there. What I'm talking about is this. You need to do the best you can. And in the process of doing the best you can, if you're so lucky or if you have destiny, fate, you may come to a point when you realize that this, what you're trying to achieve, is not only unachievable, maybe it is achievable, but it is ultimately not satisfying. Just because you have a lot of money or you have a lot of women or men or whatever, and you have a nice house, etc., all of these worldly things, they're not satisfying. You can may, like if you're into arts, you may discover that your painting experience is not satisfying or your writing experience is not satisfying, etc. And it doesn't mean that you should be satisfied with everything. You may just, do unsatisfying stuff all your life. But ultimately, something snaps in you, and you realize that you want to go deeper than that, deeper towards a place where words fail, but satisfaction increases. And that's the realm of spirituality. And how do you achieve that? That's a big question. Generally, when people feel that kind of itch, they go to some kind of spiritual religious place and do so-called spiritual practices, and they essentially get they they become indoctrinated from one inventory into another, and they start thinking that that's really something. I don't know. I think that I told this to you before. I've met a woman, a Russian speaker from some smallish town in Siberia. Now she lives in India. She's been in India for some 15 years, and she is really, really fanatical about a certain Indian spiritual tradition, which I highly respect, which does not make her any less fanatical. And she tried to convert me to it, which was kind of funny. But at the same time, just today I was listening to those people chanting very nice mantras. I spent the whole morning listening to them. It was very, very nice. But why I'm bringing this up is that you look at these people, and in their faces, you can see that what people call ideological possession. In other words, they got possessed by certain thoughts, by certain thought forms. Just like we got possessed by certain thought forms in our human society. There is no difference, really, between being possessed by the English language, which we're right now speaking, the American culture within the country where we are living right now, and becoming, I don't know, Shiva devotee or Jesus devotee or Krishna devotee or any other religious adherent. Why am I bringing this up? Is that these ideological possessions are by themselves very limiting. And spiritual pain is all about that. Realizing that you have been placed in jail, and that jail is the ideology about which you're fanatical. So, for example, I'm surrounded here by a whole bunch of people who are fanatical about American culture. I don't mean that they're bad people, they're very good people, but they are in the box, they're in the jail of a particular culture. And the way how you snap out from that, well, first of all, you need to realize that you're in jail. And you cannot really snap out of this kind of thing intellectually. That would have been too easy. You can snap out that by joining a different ideology, joining a different thought form. That's why people go into all these religious, spiritual traditions. I don't mean people who were born in them. Those people, for them, it's just their culture. But say if you were born in religious tradition X, you need to join. Not need. It will be helpful if you go to a religious tradition, spiritual tradition Y. and become nutty about that. That will give you perspective about how thought forms work. And then you can snap out of them. And some people are natural about these things, they naturally see that. But the main thing is that you need to understand in your gut that you are in jail. If you don't understand that you're in jail, if you think that you're just fine the way you are, that's fantastic. Most people are just exactly that way. And that ends the conversation for me with people like this. That's why, for example, you will never find me in those religious spiritual places. I mean, I can go there and enjoy these people, but they will definitely not get me to convert for there, because I just know that I'm going to go from one jail cell to another jail cell, and one jail cell with iron bars is as bad as iron, as another jail cell with silver or gold or platinum, bars. I mean, it's still limited. You're still not free. And achieving results we're talking about is about becoming free, snapping, going beyond these things. But if you like being in that environment, then that's fine. I mean, I don't see any problem with that. And if you want to, become, I don't know, whatever, president of some country, and that is something that floats your boat, go on floating. But going beyond this conversation, how do you snap out from the jail that society and your parents and your own mind put you in, and your biology? How do you do that? And that's what spiritual traditions try to kind of guide you towards. And the biggest problem on this path is thinking that what you see around you is all you can get and not much more. But there are places which are happier. There are places which have a lot more interesting things for them. Well, if you don't believe that they exist, they're not there. And one thing that, the last thing I'm going to say at this point is that we are really talking about different levels of wisdom. And all of us, those who would be interested in this conversation, know that there are people with whom you just can't talk. They just don't understand where you're coming from, because you cannot really discuss things from one level of wisdom to another. Adjacent levels, yes, you can, but if you jump too many levels, you cannot. And you can talk about different neuroticism, why they are lower level of wisdom, or they're more spiritually wow, so they're higher level of wisdom. But the bottom line of it is that we're talking about switching levels of wisdom. And one level of wisdom is skeptical about another level of wisdom, particularly the higher one.
I was actually just going to point that out, is that actually through reading or any number of other ways, you can get whatever wisdom you want.
That is true in occasional people, but generally what happens is that because levels of wisdom are very much connected with vibrations, if you're living in a particularly hellish place with a particularly hellish vibration, snapping out from that vibration will require you rising above the inventory, the mores of that particular society you're in. So try to resist your parents with their level of wisdom and rise above that. That's not easy. You can talk about it, but really doing it, that is something.
Well, I'd say that's kind of unfair. I think it's hard to do in your 20s or your teens, but I think once you get to your 30s or 40s, it's very easy to bypass whatever wisdom you think your parents have.
No, you can definitely rise above their neuroticism, but in terms of your level of wisdom, your spiritual side, that is not that simple. At the same time, here's the thing. Unless you want to snap out from your lower level of wisdom and rise above, and I don't mean want in words, I mean if your soul, if your body, your whole system desires that, you're going to go there. But before that happens, well, you need to experience enough things at a lower level of wisdom to desire higher level of wisdom. If we're talking about spiritual paths, some people are born with it. Have fun with what we just talked about, and you have a nice day.